Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick. We have Harrison and Sean again with us tonight. How we doing, fellas?
What's up, boys?
Good boys. Happy to be. It's one more. Next show? There's be real baseball.
I know.
That is correct. We can't wait.
Yep.
All right. Before we get started, make sure you follow and like us on Facebook. You can share our videos, our posts, all of that stuff. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts now. All right. Leading off, WBC reactions. We had the final. Yes, we went live for the final about midway through the game. You guys can check that out on YouTube and wherever we streamed it. But, I mean, it was that final. I mean, let's just get right to the bottom of the ninth. Ohtani versus Trout. You know, two guys that will never see the playoffs on the Angels facing off in a meaningful game. Like, it was awesome to see. And, I mean, Ohtani went right at him. Like, he wasn't scared of Trout at all. He went right at that.
No, but gave him everything he had.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how about reactions overall in that final?
Great tournament, great game, great ending. I mean, two of the best teams. I mean, I know it's disappointing that the Dominican didn't make it out of the group stage. That would probably be my biggest disappointment, if you want to call it that. But otherwise, man, great tournament. You had great upsets. You know, you had Team Italy making it out. Like, no one thought Team Italy was going to make it out. Team Italy.
It was all about the Nespresso machine with those guys, for the record.
Yeah, I know, right? Huh? Netherlands not making it. So, like, there was enough kind of drama and upsets, but like, you still got 90% of like the good teams that deserve to be there in the end were there in the end, and you had great games. I mean, the U.S. Venezuela game was an awesome game.
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, that was awesome. I mean, U.S. Cuba was kind of a bit of a rout, but if you were a U.S. fan, it was nice because you saw the bats kind of all came in at once. But I thought it was a great tournament. I hope 2026 is just as good, if not better. You know, we'll see. I know we talked about a little bit last week, or maybe it was when we were doing the live of the final. But, you know, like, not a good look for WBC lovers that Wainwright throws the tournament, you know, is a kind of a key member for the U.S. pitching staff, and then makes his way back to St. Louis, and he's got a groin issue, and now he's going to start the season on the IL. Like, you know, it's not a great look for the people that are like, hey, like, let's send all the great pitchers to WBC. I would love them to, selfishly, because it would be fun to watch. But, you know, aside from the Edwin Diaz thing, I mean, that was more of a fluke, like anything.
Absolutely.
Like, that can happen anywhere. But, like, this kind of thing with Wainwright, like, it kind of holds a little bit of weight. So, I mean, we'll see. But I'll tell you, this will be my last thing, Nick. No, I wouldn't mind if all these WBC games just turn into like 14 to 12 games. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if these games are in March, like, I'd rather watch that than a spring training game where it's like, I don't even know half these guys that are up because they're going to be high A ball players.
Right. I think this year's WBC and the overall feel of it and the atmosphere of it and every single game. I mean, we're going down to like Chinese Taipei against China, against Australia. You know what I mean? Like, even those games had such an atmosphere that I think you're right, Sean. I think the big name pitchers for the most part are going to stay out of it. But I think it is going to also draw maybe, you know, 2 to 5 more, maybe spread out across the tournament, not all on Team USA, but it is going to draw a few more pitchers to the teams. And I think also it depends on their contract situation. Are they a free agent that year? You know what I mean? If they're a free agent that year, at the end of that year, they're not going to go and risk it because they have a paycheck at the end of that year waiting for them. So they're probably not going to go. But I think it does bring a couple of key pitchers or top of the line pitchers back to the WBC in 2026. Maybe not necessarily on USA, but maybe on these other teams you'll still see them. But
yeah, well, and the more I thought about it too, as much as I'd love to see more of that kind of the top tier pitching talent show up, it was kind of neat to see some of these guys who might be in the minor leagues or maybe are like a 4th or 5th starter somewhere that we don't really know, kind of showcase what they can do on a big stage. So I thought there was, would we love to see more like elite starters? Yeah. I also thought it was kind of cool to be able to showcase some of these other guys who maybe we don't know about yet on a big stage. That maybe these are guys that this will propel them to big seasons, or maybe these are just guys that we haven't seen yet because they haven't gotten there. But I thought that was kind of cool to see some new names and some guys that we can now kind of watch throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree with
and,
that fully.
and really cool too is MLB The Show 23 dropped on Friday, and they have a World Baseball Classic like mission that you can do, and you can play with a lot of these guys on the
Nice.
team. So like
Oh,
Tim
cool.
Kennelly from Australia, Byung Ho Park from South Korea. So like there's names that they've gotten the rights to and put
Oh,
on
cool.
the game. So it's been really awesome
Yeah, I
to
think
get that recognition and stuff.
I think WBC overall was great for baseball. The ratings were bananas, which is good to see people actually enjoy the game. Um, I think we saw a lot of stuff we expected to see. Japan was rock solid as they always are. The U.S. was, I think, a little bit better than we thought because the pitching wasn't great, but they had a couple of good outings when they needed them, and they scored enough runs otherwise. The DR was to me just the most dramatic disappointment we've ever seen in the WBC. That team was loaded top to bottom, and they just never put anything together, and they were gone before you really got a really good chance to see them. Mexico was a dark horse like we thought they would be. Venezuela was good like we thought they would be. I don't think we thought they'd be as good as they were, but that team was loaded.
They lost one game the whole tournament.
I know, and they were they were so good top to bottom. There was again though, a good example of there's a lot of guys in that roster we didn't know that I think are going to be guys that we end up knowing here down the road because they were these guys might be minor leaguers or coming up to the major leagues now, but I think we saw a lot of stuff we expected to see, a couple of things we didn't, but the games were great. The intensity was great. The crowd was great. And I can honestly say I watched more of the WBC this go around than I probably have all the other WBCs combined.
Yeah, no question. Did you see that like insane stat, that Japan USA game, about the amount of TVs watching in Japan? It was like
on a
legit,
work morning.
Wasn't it like 94% or something insane?
And
Like,
it was 8 a.m. Japan time. Like everyone still had to go to work. Like they went to work late.
yeah. 94%, and I think just the other 6% had TVs in their house, and they just like lost power or something because that's insane. I mean, I don't even think we get those numbers for the Super Bowl.
No, goodness no.
I mean, not even close. 96% of televisions tune into that game. That is nuts.
Well, and the interesting learning in all this too is that I don't think, and I know that I can speak for myself, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how popular baseball is in some of these other countries. I was thinking, baseball is America's pastime, but in reality, it's more popular overseas right now than it is in America anymore. In some of these countries, there's a level of patriotism, obviously, but baseball for some of these countries is life. That is, they don't care about football and basketball. Like baseball is what they do, and the amount of focus and attention it got with some of these countries was surprising to me.
I think also that the MLB as a whole needs to kind of look at how much fun these other countries are having playing baseball. And, we've kind of talked about it before, these old geezers that are in office that are the old time, like, don't mess with my game. You can't show up the pitcher when you hit a 3-0 fastball 500 feet. Like, you know what I mean? Like you look at these other countries doing all of this and they're having fun. They're having a blast. And you're right. The patriotism definitely has some inclining, whatever that word is I'm trying to say, into the atmosphere of it. But I think we play two styles of baseball. Like in America, it's serious all the time. You can't show, like, it's starting to loose up a little bit, but not like it is in the Caribbean or Japan. You know what I mean? Like it just feels tighter.
I would push back. I would push back on you on Japan there. You don't see highlights of Japanese games where players are showing up pitchers. And I'm not saying that they're doing it right or wrong. I'm just saying you see a lot of that in, the Caribbean League and the Central American countries and all that, which again, I have no problem with, like, whatever. But Japan, you don't. Like Japan, and we talked about it a couple of shows ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago. The Japanese players, the Japanese fans, and the Japanese culture has an incredible respect for the game of baseball. They love it. They They seem incredibly knowledgeable about, but the amount of respect that they have for the game, and just the example of Shohei's first home run. I mean, the
Right.
girl that caught it passed it around her entire section. Everyone took a picture. Everyone was polite. They waited their turn, and then they gave the ball back because they knew what a memento is for the woman that caught it.
Right.
Like, if you think that would happen here, it's crazy. The first drunk guy next to you would take it and run away and then claim that he's the one that caught it, and it would be a whole thing, and people would be like, oh, those damn Americans.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's just, they have such an incredible respect for the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's a child's game. I mean, they say it in Moneyball, right? Like, eventually we're all told we can't play the child's game. These guys are grown-ups and they're playing a child's game, so they should have fun. I hope they all go out there and have a little bit of fun like they're kids. But just remain respectful within the game. And respectful doesn't mean you can't celebrate a home run or whatever. That's not that. I mean, what you do
Right.
inside the lines, you do inside the lines. It's just have fun.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah,
fun. Just
absolutely.
let loose. And I do think the American game is getting better over
It
the
is
last
getting
few
better.
years of that. I mean, they're loosening up, and I'm sure you're infusing a lot of these other cultures into it as well, and I'm sure that's helping.
Yeah.
This isn't all white baseball anymore. Like, you're getting all sorts of different cultures that are coming in and bringing their style of play, and I think that's good for everybody. Good for everybody. I think it's good we were able to see all these different cultures and styles, and it's not just the players that played in the WCB, but the fans. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, we talked about it, like the Mexicos and the Puerto Ricos, and like, those fans must be exhausted at the end of games. They don't sit down.
No, they're nonstop.
I mean, you wonder why the atmosphere is great. Like, they are obsessed with watching their country's team play baseball. Obsessed.
Yeah.
It is like, how do you not sit at home and be like, I love this. This is so much fun.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't even say meaningless, but like, it's like the third batter of the game. It's like a full count. And the place is going nuts. Like, it's the bottom of the ninth. It's like, it's the
Right.
first inning. It's a full count. Like, relax.
All
they
I
don't,
know
like-
is All I know is if I paid $200 for a ticket and the dude next to me is banging a bass drum, dude, I'm putting a hole in that in about the bottom of the second.
I don't know. I tell you, man, we can say that all we want,
Oh, I'd be.
We can say that all we
I'd be
want.
with it.
but that's got to be one of the most contagious atmospheres in the world.
Oh,
Yeah.
for
Like,
sure.
if I paid
Absolutely.
money for a ticket and I'm next to a guy that loves baseball that much, hell yeah, I'm getting into it with him. Like,
Yeah,
how do you not?
absolutely.
That's
Right.
such a contagious atmosphere. It has to be.
Hand me a maraca, buddy. I'm in. Yeah, like
Whatever,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
Whatever. You hand me whatever you want to hand me.
It's so good.
Yeah, careful. And playing skin flute.
Easy.
But yeah, I love the overall impact it made on
Yep, I
baseball
agree.
globally. I mean, all the way down to the Czech team. That story is unreal. Again, if you guys haven't done any research on the Czech Republic team, it is such an amazing story. That's cool. You know, the amount of talent that's in Australia that a lot of people don't know about. There's some good ball players down there. And they're starting to make their way into the major leagues here. They're in the minors. They're working their way up. I mean, Liam Hendricks is already here.
Mhm.
So there is talent in these other countries, and this is showcasing them, you know, to the fullest. And I think it was just such a great tournament. But the atmosphere is what absolutely grabbed the fans, and the casual fans started watching and like rooting. So yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was just incredible.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it was
always
a-
good. It's always good to see all these different teams, all these different players, and to Brian's point before about the World Cup effect. Like, I think anytime you treat something like a World Cup of sorts, you do draw a lot of attention to it. Because of the patriotism, the interest, but because of how much support comes out for that. But I think the WBC did a really nice job this year of, other than the scheduling, which we got into, putting the U.S. game on at freaking 10 o'clock, night after night after night was a little bit annoying. But I think the WBC did a nice job of actually giving you a reason to watch and giving you enough information about these teams so you felt obligated, or you felt it was worth watching. Where I think in the past, they just kind of like put the schedule out there, played the games, and there wasn't as much backstory. Because I think the stories like the Czech team and Great Britain's uniforms, although not in a positive light, but
Right.
I think stories like that and somehow where some of these players had come from, I think that got a lot of people's attention that may not have paid attention otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, home run, to steal a baseball
Big time.
term. I thought they hit a home run with the whole tournament. Maybe 3 years from now, the Dominican Republic will take it a little bit more seriously. But it's tough. It's hard to listen, man. I mean, baseball's 162 games for a reason. You go through fits and starts. You have week-long struggles and then week-long successes. Like, that's just the game of baseball, and it's hard to get a full a full team. Like, you just have a couple of guys that have bad days 2 days in a row, and it's like, that's it, you're out. I mean, it's a cruel way, because it's such a long season of a game. It's so cruel to make these guys, not make them, but like for these guys to show up, and it's like, all right, you got 4 games in 5 days, and if you don't, you're going home. Like, it's hard. And they struggled. They went up against some buzzsaws. Venezuela was awesome. Puerto Rico, but hey, man, they didn't pull through.
It's just like Japan, right? They make an 18-hour flight to Miami, and they almost just lost the first day they were there. Like, I mean, 18 hours, get beat, and then go back. But I mean, the bottom of that inning was insane too. But
but
overall,
the DR is the perfect example of the fact that in baseball, the best team doesn't always win when you're in these short tournaments and these short spurts, and that oftentimes, sometimes it just takes that one break. The team that puts it all together is going to beat the team that's loaded with talent, and the DR just could not seem to string it together. You had 9 guys doing 9 things. Then you had teams like Venezuela that came together really quick and put it all together.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that I agree, but which is why baseball it's everything's its best series. Which is why I didn't love the 1 game wild card one game
tough.
because it's if you're a front office, if you build your team to win series, you play series throughout the season. You have divisions, like you set up your team, you set up your pitching rotation, you set up your bench players and your rotations, and like you do that so you win series.
Yeah.
And then to win enough ball games to make the postseason, and then baseball to be like, hey, you have to play only 1 game. Like, now, is that the reason why some of them don't go on to win the World Series? No, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, it's tough to play a whole season. You set your team up to win series, and to play a whole season to then get in for 1 game, I think is tough. But listen, it worked, because I'll tell you, those wildcard games got some ratings, and those were some must tune in and watch. And
the
so
MLB
it's not
was
all
like,
bad, but
it was like they were like smart. They wanted to recreate that tiebreaker that the San Diego Padres and the Colorado Rockies had.
Colorado,
when Matt Holliday slid in and completely just ripped his face off for the winning run. And they're like, oh, like, this is awesome. Like, we want to have that win or, that win or go home feeling. And they're like, oh, we'll just add another team to the playoffs. It's a 1-game playoff. But you're right. Like, you build your team 162 games for a series. At least give them a 3-game series, because anything
series
can happen in one game. So, yeah. All right. So can't wait for 2026. WBC is going to be off the chain again, I'm sure. So, all right. We are now going to preview the AL East. What do we got? I'm sure our standings are probably pretty similar. Who wants to take this one first?
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah.
All right.
Nick can start it off.
I guess I'll go first. I'll start from the bottom and then go to the top. I have the Red Sox finishing in 5th. Sorry, boys. I love you. But I just don't. I don't see it. Orioles, I think, are going to just miss the wild card. I think they're going to be like Seattle was a couple of years ago. Like, they're kind of there down the stretch, but not quite get there. I think they're in 4th. I got the Rays 3rd. I have the Yankees 2nd, and the only reason I have the Yankees 2nd right now is because their pitching staff is a huge question mark right now. Severino's on the shelf, Montas is on the shelf, and who's the 3rd one? Rodon's on the shelf. I mean, those are 3 big arms in your starting rotation that are down. Yeah, you still have Jordan Montgomery, you have Garrett Cole.
No, Montgomery's in St. Louis.
Oh, that's right. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's in St. Louis.
So you have Nestor Cortez and you have Garrett Cole right now. So that's the only reason I have the Yankees in second. I don't think they're going to have a start like they did last year. I mean, that hot start they had last year was absolutely insane. I just don't think they have it with the pitching going down the way it is right now. But they're going to finish in second. They'll make a wild card. They'll lose in the second round of the playoffs. They are the Dodgers of the AL. So, and then I have the Blue Jays winning the AL East this year. But honestly, I think those top three could go in any direction. Any of them can take that top spot. I think the AL East is wide open at the top, and it's going to be a lot closer than I think we think. Again, bringing in the balanced schedule, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, especially down the stretch in these tight races.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah,
got.
I mean, I think the balanced schedule helps teams like the Red Sox a little bit, helps teams like the Orioles coming down the stretch. I have the Sox fifth too, but not 71 wins. Like I think the Sox will be better. I think the manager will be better. I think the roster is, or I should say the lineup is a little bit deeper. It's more stable. You kind of, barring injuries, of course, everything with these teams is barring injuries. You should be a little bit more consistent up and down the lineup. You got yourself a legitimate closer in Kenley Jansen. So, I think where we saw glaring holes last year, I think they at least attempted to fill them in. And then in the closer role, I think they actually did fill in the hole. Chris Sale, who knows what you're going to get with him? If you can get a full season's worth of Chris Sale, I thought he's looked good in spring. I know, people have been back and forth. I think spring training is tough with a guy like him. He's a veteran all-star. When he's healthy, he knows how to pitch in this league. So you wonder, I can only imagine guys like that, they spend time in spring training working on certain things. He's not trying to go out and shut you out for 5 innings. That's not what his goal is in spring training. His goal is to work on certain things to make him ready. So, does he care if he gives up a couple of bombs? No, because if he's working on something particular, this is when I want you to make those mistakes. So it's hard.
He might throw 12 straight changeups because that's what he's working on.
That's what he's working on. And it's I got to make sure that I'm, doing this with it. I'm turning it over this way, whatever. So I can't imagine they care that much about results in spring training. I think he's looked good. I liked his pace. I like the velocity. I like the way that he was hammering that slider back to right-handed hitters. He was really, really trying to work on back footing that thing like he was when he was just disgustingly in his prime. So and again, the velocity I think has been good. But anyways, I think the Sox will be okay. I just think the division is just entirely too difficult and entirely too deep and entirely too experienced, right? For all the Yankee faults of not winning a title in 20-something years, they're in the postseason every damn year, essentially. Their experience in getting to the postseason. Tampa Bay, they just roll out of bed and win 93 games. So it's that's just what they do. So I think it's going to be a lot for the Sox. I think the balanced schedule will help them keep it close. I still think they finish fifth, but close. I think Baltimore finishes fourth, but close. I have Toronto third, Tampa Bay second, and New York first. So we do have the same top three, but just slightly different order. In Tampa, it's just fool me once, fool me twice, right? This is just 7 straight years they do this thing where it's I don't know if Tampa can do it again, and then they just win 95 games. So, I'm just going to get out ahead of it now and just say that Tampa's going to win 90-something games.
McClanahan stays healthy. Glasnow comes back from Tommy John. Glasnow is disgusting.
So that's a name I feel like we haven't heard in years.
He was on the shelf with Tommy John.
Yep. We talk about health. Good Lord. But yeah, they in Wander Franco, and that's another guy on that team that if he can stay healthy, major dark horse MVP candidate if he can stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's how I have the division playing out. But I don't see more than a little bit in between these second, third, fourth, fifth. You know what I mean? I think this entire division is going to be playing somewhat meaningful baseball late in the season.
Yeah. What do you
All
got,
right.
Harrison?
I think I've got a little bit of a mix here, so I think it'll be interesting. So I got the Red Sox dead last, and I'm not nearly as positive as Sean is on the Red Sox. I think that they've improved from last year, sort of. They filled a couple of holes. I mean, their rotation going into the season is Kluber, Sale, Houck, Crawford, and Pivetta. I mean, that might be one of the 5 worst rotations in baseball. The pitching is really thin. You're relying on Corey Kluber hasn't pitched a whole season in 4 years, Sale 3 years, and then you got Houck and Crawford who are unproven, and you got Pivetta who's he's another guy. He's not great, he's not terrible, he's a serviceable pitcher, but you got 4 massive question marks in the rotation. Bullpen's better in some aspects, not in others. The offense is not. I do have high hopes for Yoshida. Losing Story hurts. There's not enough firepower in that offense to get me excited. I think the Red Sox finish a pretty distant 5th. And I don't think they really make a case this year to be taken seriously. The Rays, I think, finish 4th. I don't know what to make of that team either. They really haven't done they're in the same boat. A lot of question marks. I just don't know what they're going to do there, how they're going to be able to put together a compelling lineup and rotation night after night, because they've got a lot of guys who have massive question marks and injury history. If they can hold it together, they're probably second in the division. If they can't, they're gonna fall apart and finish 4th. So I'm not betting on these guys who haven't done anything in a while to do anything now. I got the Orioles in 3rd. I really want to say the Blue Jays are going to win this division, but I still question if that team has the makeup to do it. But I'm going to pick them anyways. I'll go Yankees and Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays improved in the offseason. I think they have question marks around can they still win games when it matters, because they couldn't last year. They limped down the stretch. They were not impressive in the playoffs, and they were quickly out. And that's been their MO. And the Yankees have friggin' injury question marks all over that team. I don't know what you're going to get with them either. I think they're going to have a really terrible April, but I think when they start getting a couple of those guys back, they're going to just start rolling. And I think that's actually a team that the balanced schedule helps them, because when they get outside of the division, they're a better team than anybody in the AL Central, and probably everybody in the AL West but the Astros. So I think that really helps the Yankees stay relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that they're not a top tier team, because the Yankees are a top tier team for sure.
They're the best team in the American League if they're healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're loaded top to bottom.
I just feel with those 3 starters being out, like, how do you fill those 3 holes to start? And then they're not coming back till mid-May. I mean, Montas isn't coming back at all.
Yeah, at all.
So there's a lot of question marks there for sure. Is Judge going to have another 62 home run season? I mean, I'm banking no.
Historically, there's a pretty big drop off in that year after.
Yeah, so because they actually start testing you again, probably. But but yeah, I don't know. And I'm with you on the Blue Jays. Like, it wasn't an easy decision for me to put them first, but they did get Brandon Belt. They did get Dalton Varsho. So a couple of bats, like defensive guys on that team. Their starting rotation isn't crazy. I mean, Manoah's awesome. I mean, you got Ryu still. I mean, he's a veteran presence. He's going to get you, a solid 10 to 15 wins. And they have some young guys that could,
Barrios.
Yeah, Jose Barrios. Yep, I forgot about him. So, I mean, they do have some starters that could give you a solid, 15-ish wins on the season. So, yeah, that's why I kind of leapfrogged them.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, the Blue Jays were my World Series pick last year. I thought they were that good, and then they just never showed it. They never got to that point. They couldn't get everybody rolling the same direction at the same time. They had all kinds of weird injuries. They had massive power outages at bad parts of the season. They kind of limped in the playoffs, got kind of just dispatched quickly. They were unimpressive. I feel like they're kind of like the DR team from the World Baseball Classic. They tease you with all this talent, but then when it comes time to actually go out there, play, and win, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a couple guys definitely didn't perform either. Like Kevin Biggio got sent down, called up, sent down, called up, and I don't even
Back and
think
forth.
he's going to be, on the opening day lineup. So, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I think the AL East is tight. To kind of go with Sean, I think the difference between the teams is going to be 2 or 3 games each. I don't think you're going to see like the Red Sox at 40 and 130, and you're not going to see a big gap like that.
No, but you could. No, I mean, I think the Red Sox are probably a 75 win team, but
Yeah.
I think you look at a team like the Orioles. If Gunnar Henderson plays well, if Adley Rutschman continues to play well, if Grayson Henderson comes up and plays the way he's supposed to, Hernandez, you've got all these
Grayson Rodriguez.
I'll get his name right one of these days.
That's fine.
You've got all these young pitchers. You got all this young positional talent. If those guys actually come up and play like they're supposed to, that's actually a team that could finish in second. Like that team is legit.
Yeah. What are you nodding, Sean? You just like
No, I give you guys flack for being such pessimistic Red Sox fans all the time, so I'm not going to do it now. But I find it interesting that we are going to give other teams but like we're going to give guys like Baltimore has had guys that Harrison mentioned that have had like negative Major League Baseball experience, and we're just saying like if they can just come up and just do things that they're supposed to do, they're going to be nasty. But like the Red Sox did fill a major hole as closer, and we can knock. They won 78 games last year. We can knock the starting rotation because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is a starting rotation of all-stars as of now, because it certainly isn't. They led the league last year in getting walked off on 13 times. 13 times they were walked off.
Really bad.
If they just take 8 of those and close those into saves, we have a team last year. Everything else stays the same. They won 82 games. And I'm not so sure the lineup is worse. Losing Xander sucks. And don't get me wrong. That absolutely is an absolute killer. Justin Turner is an upgrade over JD Martinez. Can we agree on that? You have a legitimate table setter, I think, in Yoshida, who I think is going to be, after watching him in the World Baseball Classic, I think he's going to do really well here.
I'm excited. I can't wait to watch him.
There are most definite question marks, and it's thin. I'm just saying.
But you also Adam Duvall and possibly Jorge Alfaro, like those are they're question marks. But Adam Duvall has proven he can hit 25+ home runs every season he's played.
Correct. So agree. 100%. I just there are a ton of question marks. I just find it funny that the question marks on the Red Sox roster are going to be negative, but the question marks everywhere else are just like, well, these guys are really good and they have all this. I mean, it's more busting your chops than anything else. But I'm seeing it for. I want to give these guys, not necessarily give them the benefit of the doubt, but I want to look at a guy like Duvall and say, you know what, like. I think a change of scenery, putting him in a lineup like this where he is going to be leaned on, it could completely blow up in their face. He could hit like 185 and just be an absolute nightmare. But it could be a scenario where it kind of locks him in a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at. Like it is a lot of question marks, and a lot of things are going to have to come together. But I mean, that's why you got to play the game.
The only thing I'd say to that, though, is...
I was going to say the pessimism for me was... It wasn't just because they walked off on 13 times. It's because we had no identity. It almost seemed like
we didn't have a plan.
Well, that's what I mean. It seemed like Cora just had no idea like who to put in and like what situation. Like he just seemed completely lost there for a while. So like it was hard to get an identity. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I'm totally keyed in on the Blue Jays identity because we just sat here and said, we don't even think they have one. Like they don't have a veteran leader that's, pulling them along and telling them how to win or teaching them how to win. The Red Sox were it wasn't that they blew the 18 leads. It was how they blew them, I feel like. And it was just a loss of identity. I think that's what my biggest question mark is. I'm excited to see this lineup because honestly, if the lineup's clicking, they're going to put up some serious runs. I mean,
but don't we, but the lack of identity, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think the lack of identity hurt you in the situations of like they got walked off on 15 times or whatever the number was, because they just didn't have a closer. Like they just didn't have anybody in that role, and Cora was forced to
try it by committee.
kind of, try and just kind of piecemeal it together for so long, and then kind of the idea was, and I have no idea, but it almost seemed like the idea was, oh well, if we're in it at the deadline, then we'll just go make a move and get a closer. It's like that's just no way to do. Like they didn't have an identity last year, and if you just had a legitimate closer, you're an 82 win team.
Fair.
Without the identity, with the terrible managing and the lack of depth, and so I don't like it's bad because like Boston expects better and the fans expect better and they should. A lot of things went wrong for that team last year. Injury, Kike, that's a big loss at the top of the lineup, and you have to shift a bunch of things around pretty much from the beginning of the season on because of that, and it's just. A lot of things had to go wrong, and they all went wrong all at the same time. And the team scrapped out 78 wins. Like, I'm not putting them in the World Series by any stretch, but I do think the water's going to find its level a little bit, and I think they'll be better. That's all.
Yeah, especially with Bobby Dahlbeck being your opening day shortstop, that's going to be pretty awesome.
He's in AAA.
I can't wait for that. Yeah. Well, whatever.
All right. I look at it. So I look at it this way: you look at the Orioles, and they got a lot of question marks, but they've got question marks on guys that are top prospects in baseball. The Red Sox have question marks on a bunch of guys who are in their 30s with injury histories. Like you look at the Orioles, that is a team that's on the way up, that's loaded with talent. The Red Sox are a team on the way down that's gotten old and injured. And if these guys stay healthy, the Red Sox may be interesting to watch. But when you look at that starting rotation, you look at that lineup, you look at that bench. I mean, the minute somebody gets a hangnail, they're done. They're screwed. There's zero depth on that team. And I'm not saying that this is not like an organizational problem. They went for broke in 2018, and this is the fallout of that. There's nobody in the farm system coming up to help them out. You got Casas, who's
we think is going
to be good.
They've built. I mean, it's a couple years away.
Coming,
like these guys aren't knocking on the door.
Exactly, they're coming.
They're coming.
But
it was bare bones.
This team in 21 caught lightning in a bottle and got to the ALCS. They should not have been there. They were way ahead of time. But everything went right, and then 22 was the opposite. Everything went wrong. You kind of average those two seasons out, and that I think is closer to what this team is. But when you lose the veteran presence of JD,
which is about 82 wins.
Yeah, you lose the veteran presence of JD. You lose Andrew. You lose Story for the whole season. You've got all of this experience and talent that walks away, and you backfill it with really nothing. Like I think Yoshida's the only guy on that roster. Like I'm really excited to see. We know Devers is Devers, but Justin Turner, another guy who's on the wrong side of his 30s, that I think is still a productive hitter. But for how much longer? You're relying on Chris Sale, Corey Kluber, James Paxton. All these guys who haven't been on a baseball field full time in 4+ years. Like I look at the Red Sox, and you're limping along with guys that you're holding together with duct tape and Band-Aids. And you got the Orioles who are bringing all these young studs up into the system, and you're just at different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, agreed. But you're doing this knowing, like you're doing this as a Red Sox front office and ownership, knowing that you're holding it together with duct tape and spit because we have to wait a couple of years for the guys that we had built into the pipeline. Like, and I'm sorry, like as fans, like I get that all we care about here is championships, and you should. If you're a fan of a team, like you shouldn't settle for anything less than the team trying to win a title. I get that. But it's more complicated than that. Like you can't go for broke for every year. Like you can't do it.
You can't.
So I'm okay with the Red Sox doing it this way because I think they're giving themselves enough of a chance that if things do go right, and let's say they do catch somewhat lightning in a bottle again, are they going to the ALCS? No. But they catch a bit of lightning in a bottle again this year, and you're in the mid-80s, and you're playing meaningful games in September to maybe get the final wildcard spot. I'm totally fine with that. That's all.
Oh,
that's
I mean,
I think that's so. I guess it's our kind of long way of saying, like, I agree that the team is lacking. The roster is thin. One person gets hurt, and it's good night nurse. All that stuff I totally get. But I'm okay with them doing it this way because I think they addressed enough of the issues last year. I just don't think we're going to have to be watching embarrassing baseball like we had to watch last year. Yeah. I guess is kind of
that's fair.
I can actually say I fully support the direction Chaim Bloom is going. This team needs to suck for a couple more years to get rid of all this. They need to get rid of the sale. They need to clean house, and they need to build up the farm system, bring up some young guys, and kind of give this franchise a new identity. I'm not upset that they're going to suck this year. I expect them to suck. I want them to suck because I want them to be really good in 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and be sustainably good. Not like we're first place, last place, because that's how this team's been for the last 5 years. They're either the best or the worst, and you can only do that for so long before it catches up. So, do I think this team sucks? Absolutely. Are they basement dwellers for the next year or two? Absolutely. Am I okay with it? 100%. Because in 3 years we're going to be very happy we went through this.
And this is exactly what we were calling for back in December. We're like,
right,
where is the direction of this team going? Like, it just seemed like
Blow it up.
it just seemed like we were out in the abyss, just floating around, not making any moves. And then Bloom came out during that team weekend and was like, listen, stick with me. We're going on this journey. It's, I know you guys expect to win all the time, but like, trust the process. Like, we're getting there.
And I'm along for the ride. I like what they're doing. I like the direction they're heading, and they're piecemealing it for right now to make it so the team is not a complete joke. But they're not good, and I'm totally okay with that.
And no one's talking about how big that Yoshida contract is anymore. No one is talking about that. So
I think
to see him for sure.
You pair him and Devers together for the next 5 years, and if you can fill in some pieces over the next couple, some young guys and some talent, this team could be a hell of a lot of fun to watch in a couple of seasons. They just have to get through this first.
Just think, that's 40 more RBIs for Devers on his home runs. On his home runs alone.
Yep, easy.
What did he hit last year? He hit like 28 or 30 home runs, and he drove in like 72.
Yeah, the 3/4 of them were solo shots.
Yeah. Brian says Devil Rays Fridays. Did you guys see this? Kind of what the Marlins are doing. So they're bringing back their retro Devil Rays uniforms on Fridays. So I like the old Devil Rays uniforms.
I loved them. They were so nice.
I think it was just Friday home games, though. Am I right about that? I thought it was just Friday home games, or is it all Friday?
It might be Friday home games.
I think it is.
They rode their
either way is fine.
Wore their roads.
Words are hard, Nick.
Goodness, listen, I can't. But even if the Marlins wore their aways too on Fridays, I think it'd be cool. But yeah, Brian says just home.
Yeah,
but I just think it would be. I mean,
logistically, it would just make things a nightmare to have to pack all that extra stuff. So it makes sense that it's just home.
Yeah, I was watching. I was watching the rookie the other day, and of course they were rocking the original Devil Rays jerseys. I'm like, man, I miss those things.
They're so
they were great.
They were nice.
It's too bad. Like, it's one of those things where they'll never go back to them full time, just because like the team was an absolute joke when they were. It's so like logo, like branding, right? Like, I think the Patriots. I wish they would go back to that old logo.
Oh, yeah.
They never will, because the team was a disgusting embarrassment when they wore those. So it's like the branding, like, you just can't do it. But I love them. I love the logo. I love the colors. I love the font on the jerseys. Everything about the old Devil Rays uniforms, I love them.
Yep. Agreed. They were like ahead of their time in terms of that design. They were bright. They were modern, like way before anybody else was doing it.
Yep. I agree.
All right. That caps off our AL East. I know the season starts this week, but we are going to do our previews where we will pick our playoff winners, our division winners, our MVP picks, Cy Young picks, all of those picks. Next week, we'll have like 3 or 4 games under our belt at that point. So I'm sure we'll be talking about those games as well, but we will do our preview and our picks for that next week during this segment. We're going to move on to 7th inning stretch, where I put out who are your best all-time center fielders and your best current center fielders. We did have some comments on this one. Let's see here. Steve Nickerson said Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Kirby Puckett for his top.
Ooh, Puckett's a good call.
Kirby Puckett's a good one.
I used to love watching Kirby Puckett play.
And then we'll just stay with all time right now. Brian said Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Trout. I guess you don't need a third center fielder when you have those two.
You kind of don't.
I wasn't being like facetious.
No, you kind of don't.
Legit. Ken Sawyer says Mantle, Mays, and Griffey Jr. I mean, those top 3 are ridiculous.
That was my top 3.
That was my 3. Yeah.
And then Jim Britt says Torrey Hunter, Johnny Damon, and Jim Edmonds. So kind of more of a favorite center fielder.
That's an entertaining group. I always loved Torrey Hunter. He was one of my favorite players as a kid.
Torrey Hunter. Absolutely.
He's like the mayor. Everybody loved that guy. You know, he's like the Joey Votto kind of player. Like everybody loved him. Ambassador of the game. Fans loved him.
Yep. So you said you guys had the same three?
Mays, Griffey,
Yeah.
Mantle.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mantle
that's
Griffey. Yep.
yeah. I took Mantle off the list because this is a kind of a personal favorite for me, but Jim Edmonds is my third.
Yeah.
Just,
don't hate that choice.
Defensively, I could watch highlights of him every night and not get sick of it. It's just insane.
Well, he had that crazy like drop and drive swing where he was just like launching stuff.
Yeah. He had the launch angle before
Oh my
the
goodness.
launch angle was a thing.
Yeah, he had the launch angle of NASA. That guy was trying to put everything up in the air.
Yeah. All right. I'll start with you guys. Who are your top three current center fielders?
You want me to go?
Yes, Harrison.
Yeah, you go.
All right, I'll go. So my top three are Trout, when healthy, Buxton. I think that guy is an athletic specimen and a freak. And for me, the last one for me is J-Rod.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to it's to get a little bit of variety in here, other guys to talk about. I think Brandon Nimmo has really turned himself into a center fielder that should be talked about. I think his ability to get on base, set the table, run the bases. Defensively, he's better than fine. Like I don't think Brandon Nimmo's going to win you any Gold Gloves, but not from lack of his ability. It's just because there's a lot of really good defensive center fielders out there.
Yeah,
Chas McCormick is really good in Houston.
Yep.
I mean, I really
for the record, I struggle between Nimmo and Buxton. Nimmo was almost my third.
Yeah,
I think he plays a really solid center field.
Who I almost threw in my top three was Cedric Mullins.
I love Cedric Mullins.
Cedric Mullins won.
I can't wait to see him live.
When we were looking, when we were getting ready for this, and I was kind of doing some research, I was like looking just for shits and giggles. I was looking on MLB.com, and they have the shredder that does like the top 10.
Oh yeah,
like at each position, and it had Mike Yastrzemski at number 9 going into 2023.
I'm looking at that right now.
I don't know, man. Like I'm not going to pretend to watch a lot of Mike Yastrzemski games. I mean, played against him in high school, but he's, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I know the shredder takes into all sorts of statistics and stuff they take into account. I think defensively he's good.
Yeah.
You catch games, you catch highlights. It's he's chasing down balls, and he's really a gap-to-gap center fielder. I have no idea offensively, but MLB.com says that's a name to watch out for. So, maybe I'll try and catch some more Giant games this year. But I do think it's a fairly deep group.
If you were complaining about the 10 p.m. start times for USA, you aren't staying up for a Giants game, buddy.
Okay, but for a Giants game, I will, not on Tuesday and then Wednesday and then Thursday.
Yeah, right.
Okay, fair enough.
Catch one.
Fair enough.
But it's deep. I mean, there's a lot of good center fielders, young good center fielders out there.
Michael Harris.
It's a deep
I
position.
love
Harris
Michael Harris.
That's another great one. Yep, that's another great one. So it's deep.
Our buddy Brian Reynolds, who's stuck in Pittsburgh trying to get a new contract.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Steve Nickerson, to go back to our viewers, they Trout, Cody Bellinger, Kevin Kiermaier. But Bellinger's is he playing right field in Chicago?
Probably because they got Happ in center, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. But Kevin Kiermaier.
No, Happ's left.
Oh, Happ's in left. They got Happ. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he might be. Kiermaier is defensively is still gross. I think offensively he's so bad.
Yeah, he's not a good. He's really. I mean, he wasn't a great hitter at his peak, but he's definitely not not a very good hitter now.
But I mean, shit, man. If you need someone in center field to run a ball down, he'll go get it. He is unbelievable defensively.
Yeah. Oh, he's great, and he's got
the jump he gets on balls is unreal.
Yeah,
I've seen that guy eat wall so many times and have no fear, no hesitation.
How about George?
And the aggression, the aggressive way he comes into balls, like shallow balls, like he will not let a ball drop in front.
No, he charges hard.
Did you see him cut off Randy Arozarena last year and then just throw an absolute BB to home plate, like 104 miles an hour? He ran all the way over to left field, cut off Arozarena, and then just hosed the guy. How do you feel about? I just said his name, George Springer.
Got to stay healthy, but I like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's still a very, very good center fielder, but again, it's the track record.
Yeah, the injury history. Jim
I really thought he would make a huge difference in Toronto. That experience, the playoff experience, and I think he has to a certain extent. But he's got to be out there. He's got to be out there on that field, and he's got to be present a little bit more. The injuries can't continue to derail him.
Yeah, he just can't stay on the pitch long enough. Jim Britt said Trout. Yeah. Jim Britt said Mike Trout, Julio Rodriguez, and Cedric Mullins. So those are his top three.
Yep.
As well.
Good picks.
Yeah. I mean, like Sean said, and we all said it. Like center field's pretty deep. There's some young guys that are going to be pretty interesting to watch. Michael Harris is a speed demon out there. We're going to see if absolute full season out of him.
I will say this: I was watching a little bit of the Red Sox Braves game, like a rerun of it this afternoon. He looks like he's put on a decent amount of weight. Michael Harris does, and not like in a bad way, but like bulked up.
Like Jeremy Pena?
Yeah, like I wonder, for a guy that plays center field the way he plays center field, I don't think he's going to turn into a bum defensively. That's not what I'm saying. But it'll just be interesting to see how he carries that amount of weight throughout a full season.
Yeah.
Obviously it's offensively driven, right? And that's fine. And I want a guy like that to continue to put up offensive numbers. He's disgusting. But, you wonder how much of a, if at all, it might not. I might end up looking like an idiot, but it's just something to keep an eye on because he looked bigger. Like I'm like that. He looks like really big for Michael Harris. And you look it up, and he did. I mean, he bulked up.
Yeah, and what I find funny too, like you see some of these guys do that. Michael Harris is a good example this year. Jeremy Pena is a good example this year. Guys that came into spring training like significantly bigger than they were, but a lot of times baseball is not a game of brute strength. It really is about that. It's that sequencing. It's that fluidity. And when you get these guys get a little bit more rigid and bulky, their game changes. And some of these guys, it doesn't change for the better.
You need that lean tone muscle, not so much the bulkiness.
And I don't want to talk out of turn. Like it's hard to tell specifically. Like it's hard to be like, oh, like his shoulders look huge. Like he just looked bigger. Like he just looked. But it could be. It's a lot of wear and tear, man, to play shortstop and to play center field in Major League Baseball every day. Like it could just be overall weight that they're just putting on to try and just, everyone said, all the professional athletes say, what the hell do I know? But they all say, like, they all lose weight during the season, right? Because it's a grind, man. I mean, it's a grind to show up every day. So it's like if you can start the season, 12 pounds heavier, not necessarily that you're out of shape or you're fully bulked up. Like maybe you just play the way you're supposed to you play and kind of it brings you back to a healthy weight. I don't know. It's just something that I noticed that I just am going to keep an eye on. Wow. Evaldi just gave up back-to-back dingers, and they were both absolute bombs.
Yeah, Michael Harris is also only 22 years old, so for all we know, he's going through a growth spurt too. He's a freaking kid. He's a freaking kid. But no, you're right. I mean, I want to say Trot Nixon and Jason Varitek used to come into camp like 20 pounds heavier than they'd end the season because they had to in order to get through the season.
God, what was Sandoval's excuse? All right.
He was never good at push-ups from the dinner table.
My goodness gracious. All right. So, yeah, we are going to move on to the rounding third question, which was your top 3 favorite managers, not who you think the best. Who are your personal favorite managers? We had some people comment on this. Henry LaRose said Terry Francona, Dusty Baker, and Joe Madden. Our buddy Joe Madden are his 3.
I know, but I've always enjoyed Joe Madden's his take on the game. He himself is a weirdo, but
Mohawk Fridays.
Oh yeah, but this is the guy that made batting average on balls in play like an everyday stat because that's how he measured the Rays. Like it's the guy gets baseball, but he's just a weirdo.
He does.
Yeah, bring in the left fielder or bring in a relief pitcher, then put the relief pitcher in left to bring the left fielder into pitch, and then put the pitcher back in left field. Did you guys see that exchange? So he brought in a relief pitcher.
Yep.
That was a righty. Then the next batter was a lefty. So what he did is he brought in the lefty, moved the relief pitcher to left field, and then the lefty pitched the batter. The lefty left the game. He brought the left fielder back into pitch the next batter, and then subbed the left fielder.
Whatever, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
It's just, but like,
And
he
it's
knew
like-
the ins and outs of the game, though.
But it's not just like that. But something like that is what bothers me about Joe Madden, because he did it in a game in July when it didn't matter. It's like what?
Right.
Like, you went through all this to like win a game in July, and I'm not saying the games don't matter, but it's like, I mean, just if your bullpen
Yeah.
is that beat that you have to do that, just take the loss and rest your boys. Like what are we doing here?
Right.
But
I mean,
I
he did
Joe
win a
Madden
World
always
Series
won.
in Chicago, so
Yeah.
he did. He knows what he's doing. I'm not saying that. There's
Right,
something about him that always bugged me. That's all.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, he's
Brian-
he's just got a weird approach.
Brian said Sparky Anderson,
Mm.
last manager to win a game by forfeit. He said Jim Leland, because he needs to just drag butts in the dugout.
I was
And won
ripping
the
cigs
W-
on the bench.
Yeah, and won the WBC in 2017.
right.
And then Billy Martin, who is Brian Sawyer's favorite manager. Ricky Henderson's favorite manager was Billy Martin, so that's why he went with that.
Yeah,
Steve Nickerson said,
Brian, I'd like to have a drink and a smoke
Billy,
with Billy and Jimmy and Sparky. Hell
Right.
yeah.
Steve Nickerson said Don Zimmer, Billy Martin, and Terry Francona, all for very different reasons.
I bet.
And Jim Britt and Stacy said the same exact three: Terry Francona, Bobby Cox, and Lou Piniella were their three.
Sweet Lou, that's a good one.
yeah.
yeah.
It was always. I loved seeing Sweet Lou melt down.
Um,
He was so good at it.
I'll go with the three that I have, and I have these three because these were the ones I watched when I came home from school all the time. And that's Bobby Cox for the Braves. I mean, they were on every night at 7 on TBS. Gene Lamont was the manager of the White Sox during their 90s run with Frank
Yeah.
Thomas, Tim
Gene
Raines,
Lamont. Holy
all
cow.
of them, all those guys. And then Cito Gaston is my third, and he was the Blue Jays manager when they won the back-to-back World Series in the early 90s.
He had the dark mustache and the scowl on his face all the time.
I mean, I
Great
almost
mustache.
I almost just went Tito and Cito, but
Yeah.
I like those three. Bobby
I
Cox,
figured for sure you were a Bobby Valentine guy, Nick, but
only when he brought out the glasses after he got thrown out.
that's still an epic. Yeah.
best move ever.
That's one of my probably favorite memories of managers when he got ejected from the game and came back out with the fake the glasses and mustache. But
And he invented the rap. So
and he invented the rap. Yes,
Yeah.
he's an interesting guy,
yeah, absolutely. So
and he
those
was
are mine.
awesome in Boston.
Oh yeah.
Stop being pessimist, Harrison.
Yeah, hey, those results were final. There's no reason to be pessimistic about it. He was terrible.
It's
He was. I
facts.
sure was.
That was horrendous.
All right. Who you
so-
guys got?
My three, I had Sparky Anderson, Bobby Cox, and then for me the third one was Jack McKeon. I used to. I love the no nonsense
one.
Trader Jack persona. That guy didn't care who you were. You either played the game right or you didn't play it at all. He wasn't afraid to be, I guess, tough, but he's also, players loved him or hated him. He was your best friend. He was on your ass. But he got the most out of the teams he managed.
I'll tell you, I love the picture after they won the World Series in Florida, and he just looks so relieved.
Yep.
And then he's got the cigar in his mouth, and he just
Totally.
like finally,
Yep.
just
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
What about you, Sean?
What is that?
Brian
Okay,
says Tommy
um,
Lasorda.
Thomas Lasorda's good. I went with managers that I watched. I didn't watch Lasorda, so I certainly, I mean, good manager, great manager, certainly had a lot of success, but I didn't watch him. My three, Tito was big. I mean, Tito was, I mean, to come to Boston and do what he did in his first year and then back it up 3 years later in 2007, just for someone my age growing up watching and loving the Red Sox, I'll never forget that. Bobby Cox, another one. I mean, just absolute, just a consistent run of dominance in Atlanta for that period of time in that division.
And epic meltdowns. I mean, when
Yeah,
this
great
guy
epic
melted
meltdowns.
down,
Loved
it
him.
was
But listen,
unreal. Ballistic.
my third guy was the epic meltdowner, and that was Jim Leland.
Oh
He
yeah.
was, I mean, I've talked about it before on the show, but my all-time favorite manager meltdown is he's going out, chewing out the umpire. God Bless America starts. He stops, takes the hat off.
So
He
good.
stands still for the whole song. The song ends. He puts his hat back on, and he just picks up where he left off.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest of all time. It is.
Yep.
I mean, this man loved baseball, but loved America. So like, he didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like, I'm just, God bless America. He listened to the whole song. He was the best. He was. Oh,
So good.
I love Jim Leland.
Yeah, so good.
And one guy that I really liked when he was at his prime was Tony La Russa. When he was in St. Louis and he wasn't falling asleep on the bench with the White Sox. He was such a good, just a tactical manager of the game. Same with Mike Scioscia. I always liked Mike Scioscia too for the same reason.
That was another one that I very much enjoyed those teams.
Yeah,
those
guys were
teams.
amazing, like tacticians of the game. They knew what string to pull, what call to make, who to move. Like Tony La Russa and Mike Scioscia were the guys that, when it came to the actual like tactics of baseball, they were very hard to beat as in-game managers.
Agreed. And not just that, but their teams played such clean baseball.
Oh, so totally.
There was, whether it was clean defensively, clean running the bases, they were efficient pitchers. Everything was just kind of like, oh yeah, like they're top of the league and they play great defense. They run the bases well, hit and runs, stolen bases, and defensive catchers were fantastic in both LA and St. Louis. And why wouldn't they be, with both of those guys being the managers?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm so interested to see if Yadi gets a shot. Like all these old veteran catchers leading teams that, like you said, have managed games their entire career. Is some team in the next couple of years going to give Yadi Molina a shot, on the bench?
Does he want it? I mean, I think
I was just going to ask the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I don't know.
Like I almost look at a guy like Yadi, and this is completely probably unfair for me to say because I certainly don't know the man on a personal level, but like I almost wonder if him managing Team Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic is just like that's perfect for him. It's a short period of time. He gets the love of the game and all this, but it's not a grind 10 month. I mean, you're a manager of baseball. It's a 12-month process. I mean, this is you're not just showing up at spring training getting started. Like this is a year round. It's a grind, and who knows? Maybe he'd be fantastic. I mean, he would be fantastic. Maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he does. I don't know. I just think with him, that's the kind of the one question when you look. He's like, does he want it?
Yeah.
Well, and that's like Jason Varitek. Like when we interviewed Jim Rowe, when we first started this podcast, he actually said to us, he's like, Varitek doesn't want to be a manager. Like he loves being a bench coach. He loves being part of that, but he doesn't necessarily want the responsibility of being that day in, day out manager. And I mean, definitely I get it, but
well, and Yadi last year towards the end of the season was asked that same question. I think his response was that his intention was to go manage either Puerto Rico or Venezuela because he likes managing the kids. He likes managing these guys up through, but did not want the pressure and the kind of the headache that comes with being an MLB manager. He wanted to go manage these young guys who are hungry that he could teach, and didn't have any real aspirations for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
That can change, but
right. Sure. Yeah, maybe 10, 15 years, he's older and he's missed a game or something like that.
Could you imagine the impact Yadi or Molina could make on guys that are like 15 to 18 that are trying to get to the next level? Like that'd be huge.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good managers. I could have gone another 3 too, but those are just the 3 I watch all the time. Yep. So I love those guys. All right, we have a lot of news. We're going to start heading home here. A lot of news to wrap up here. Let's start off with the JT Realmuto ejection today. If you have not seen this, please do yourself a favor and look this video up because I'll start it off like this. So there's a foul ball hit. The umpire just throws the ball back to the pitcher. Later in the at-bat, he fouls another one off. JT Realmuto reaches back, and he doesn't feel a ball plop in his glove. So he puts his glove down, and the umpire has threw the ball down, missed the glove, and then just turns around and tosses him.
So just a point of correction, Nick, just because I do think when you watch the video, it's important to get it. So it wasn't after another foul ball. So what happened is the foul ball happened, and the umpire threw the ball to the pitcher himself. The pitcher then didn't like the ball, so threw it away and asked for another ball.
Oh, gotcha.
That's when JT asked, And so it was a matter of seconds in between. That's
Gotcha.
why.
So
Like, so
that's
if I
what
was
it was.
JT, I'd be like I would do the same thing if I was you, because it was a matter of
Yeah.
5 seconds in between.
Right.
And the clip I just put in the
It's
chat
crazy.
shows the prior exchange where the umpire threw it directly back to the pitcher. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, there's a link in the chat. Go ahead and click that. It gives you the whole scenario where the previous ball was thrown directly back to the pitcher. Then Real Muto puts his glove up. There's no ball, so he takes it back down. He gets booted. The whole thing's kind of insane. But these umpires are all on edge, and I don't know what it is, why they're so quick with the trigger. But really, as an umpire, nobody should know you're there. If you do a good enough job, nobody knows you're there. But too often, these guys are trying to become like the featured story of the game. They just need to call the game and get out of the way. Like, to throw a guy out for something like that, which was basically like a simple miscommunication where the ball was going, is bananas to me. And I would have loved to have heard his explanation to those guys as to why he threw him out, and what he had to write up as a report after the game as to why he ejected him. Because there's just absolutely no explanation in the world that would justify what he did.
Right. Real Muto wasn't even like heated. He just stood up and he's like, dude, like you could read his lips. He's like,
Yeah.
I thought you were throwing the ball back to the
Right.
pitcher, so I put my glove down.
It's the most insane thing I've ever seen.
My God.
Yeah,
But,
it's
yeah.
listen.
Brian makes a great point again, right? Make the umpires do a post-game press conference. I agree.
So we've
at a minimum, where's the post game reports they're supposed to be filing that we used to get to see the pitch results and all that from?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it for a while. I mean, baseball is an umpire problem. I mean, that's nothing new. I even if he thought like, so if we want to dare to put ourselves in the position of trying to understand what happened, he probably thought that Real Muto was like putting the glove down, like to show him up.
Yep.
Like that's probably what he thought. Even still, and Real Muto doesn't do that, because if you watch the video, his eyes are looking at the pitcher, so he doesn't even know what the hell's going on. It's like he's not trying to show anyone up. But even if he was, let's just play that scenario out for a minute. Even if he was, it's still not an ejectionable offense. Like it's still not. The umpire should lean down and be like, "Hey, don't do that again. Like that's bullshit," or like whatever. But like that's still not an ejectable offense.
No.
Right.
Absolutely.
And this is what, like, yeah, it's a spring training game. It's like, it is what it is. If something like that was to happen in, let's say, the third inning of a game in like July or August, like that's a major problem. That's a major bat in the lineup. That's your battery mate. That's your, in this case, one of the better players on your team.
Yeah.
Like you can't have umpires running around willy-nilly just tossing guys because, the guy feels slighted because he put his glove down. Like, what?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's just, the whole thing is just so outrageous.
Or JT
Outrageous.
was
And then-
like, hey, buddy, can you just toss me out of this game real quick? I just caught like a ton of innings in the WBC.
I mean,
I
listen.
really don't want to be out here. Could
But
you just like toss me somehow?
But I miss the days where these umpires would actually like have a conversation with somebody before they threw him out. Like I can think of the days like the umpire would do that. He picked the ball up, he threw it to the pitcher, and as he walked back, he put his head down and be like, "Hey, JT, don't do that again. Like, what's the deal, bud?" And they talk for a second, like very secretly, and they go back to what they were doing. Like that's how it used to work.
Right.
Like in the days of like the catchers, like Veritek and those kinds of guys, like that's the conversation they would have. They would grab the ball, throw it back, and then as they walked back, they would put their head down and say something, and they clear it up. Like there was a conversation that was had. Now these guys just throw people without any explanation or warning.
Yeah.
Like it's no big deal.
As a catcher myself growing up, I always wanted that relationship with the umpire.
Right.
Like you
Sure.
give me those 2 inches off the corner. If we're beefing, I'm not getting that pitch.
Well,
right?
And it's no different than like when a foul tip hits the umpire and the catcher grabs the ball and walks out to the mound and talks to the pitcher for a second.
Give
like,
him
buys
time.
the umpire some time.
Give him a minute.
And
Yeah.
vice versa. A foul tip off the catcher. What does the ump do? He pops up, rubs up a ball, throws it to him,
Cleans the
cleans
plate,
off the plate.
brushes off the plate. Yep.
It's they give each other that kind of respect, but yet when there's a little bit of a dust up or a perceived dust up, there's no conversation. They just the niceties end and they get tossed.
Yep. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, it was bizarre. I'm
Weirdest thing
hoping-
I've ever seen.
I'm hoping maybe the ump just like he was having a bad day. I don't know. Like it's just like let's just chalk it up as a one-off and like hope we never see something like that
Well,
in
yeah.
like games that matter, because that's unacceptable.
And for all we know, maybe Realmuto was on his ass about a pitch an inning before, or maybe the bench is chirping at him. Like, you don't know what's going on, but to toss a guy that quickly for something so stupid is really
Right.
hard to defend.
Agreed.
Yeah, just absolutely. 100%. Nick Fanning commented on my post earlier. He's like 100% chance that ump's wife is cheating on him. But my God.
Yeah, that guy got up this morning on the wrong side of the bed and was looking for somebody to take it out on.
All right. Also in MLB news, they are now rating the efficiency of Batgirls and Batboys in an effort to speed up the game.
Yeah, we're going to tell 12-year-olds they don't do a good enough job and fire them.
Like, come on. Like, that's a little much. Like,
Sure is.
I would really like to understand why pace of play is such a friggin' hot button topic with the front office, to the point that they're now going to measure the efficiency of the bat boy and the bat girl. Like, I get they want to speed the game up to make it more entertaining for the people that still aren't going to watch it, but you've got MLB's got all of its focus on pace of play right now. Like, that's the only problem it's got.
Do you want to know, honestly, you want to know my tinfoil hat? Like,
absolutely, I do. I love tinfoil hat opinions.
I honestly think that they look at this. It's akin to the way that politicians run campaigns, and I honestly think Major League Baseball is doing this to show us the shiny object of things that they're getting so much better at, so that they don't have to address other issues like a major umpire problem that they have. They have a major umpire problem, and it's more than just the casual fan that knows it. It's like what is happening? But we're not going to talk about the umpires because it's a messy situation, because they have unions and they're protected. And, guys like Angel Hernandez are going to bitch, moan, and complain if their names are in the media too much. So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to tell you how great the game is because we're speeding it up. And look how quickly that Yankees-Angels game got over last night. 2 hours and 23 minutes. Like, those kinds of things. Like, I think it's good that they're trying to speed the game up. I think it's good they're trying to be a little bit more efficient with the time. But I think they're going way overboard with this, and I think there's a reason, and I think because that's what they're going to try and keep our eye on all year. Don't be surprised. Whatever the over-under is on the amount of times Major League Baseball mentions his pace of play on a weekly basis, take the over. Because they're just going to hammer you with it. That's all they're going to do, is hammer you with pace of play, pace of play, pace of play.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. It's kind of like, look over here at what we're doing, but let's ignore all the other problems. But because you look at the WBC, I don't think there's a single one of those games under 3 hours, but yet it got the highest ratings in baseball history.
Yeah.
I don't think people don't care about pace of play. They care about the quality of the game. I think pace of play helps, like maybe people that don't want to sit in for the marathon, but if the game is good and it's worth watching, the people that care about baseball are going to watch it.
I mean, the only counter I'll have to that, though, is the WBC tournament was essentially playoffs, right? Like,
Sure.
Like, when Major League Baseball gets to September and October and the playoffs are starting, no one is going to care how long, because it's really good teams. Good teams make the playoffs. Bad teams don't. So it's going to be good teams that are in the playoffs facing other good teams that are in the playoffs with the really good pitching and the really good hitting. So no one's going to care. I do think Major League Baseball has a point of speeding up some of these games throughout the course of 162 in the dog days of summer when the teams just aren't very good. Like,
yeah.
I like those ones I get. Lou Maloney had a really good point, and it was in the 9th inning. I think it was the championship game, the Trout Ohtani at bat, specifically, if I remember correctly. Obviously, World Baseball Classic didn't have the pitch clock, right? I don't think anyone watching the game was looking at their watch being like, how long did it was one? I think it was in between the 2nd and 3rd, or in between the 3rd and the 4th. I'll have to go back and look it up. It was like a full 45 seconds in between two pitches.
For sure.
But that's what makes baseball fantastic in some of those crucial, let your nuts drop moments where it's like, let the suspense build up. Like, let it, right? Like the suspense is just adding with every second that he's not on the rubber throwing that ball. Like, it's just, you can feel it in the stadium. You can feel it on TV. It's like the suspense is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. Like, let it build. Some of those moments, the reason why that strikeout was so magnificent, on top of the fact that it was the best pitcher against the best hitter, was like we could feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we felt it because you let the moment sink in. We weren't rushed through it with 15-second pitch clock.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's going to have any direct impact on postseason games. That's months and months away for us to find out. I just wonder if it's going to be something where we're like, ugh, it just felt rushed. It just
Right.
felt rushed.
I bet at moments it's gonna.
Yes, at moments it will. I think so too. But we'll get used to it, and who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe by the time the postseason rolls around, we won't even be used to it. We won't even notice it because we'll be
Right.
used to it because
Right.
all season long. So who knows? I don't want to get ahead of myself with that, but
I mean,
I just
thought that was an interesting point.
that
I just
Japan
can't
USA
wait.
game was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, but it was like edge of your seat worth watching baseball.
It was a fantastic game.
I just can't wait until MLB starts sending their ball girls and ball boys to the NFL Combine to get their 40 times.
Well, I
mean,
can't.
that's-
I can't
just
wait for
can't
the
wait.
first time MLB calls up a team and goes, "Hey, that ball boy on Thursday night, he's gone. Fire him. Let him go."
Yeah.
Well, they won't. They won't. But that's
God, I hope
what I'm
not.
saying. Like that's the point I'm trying to make is the
Yeah.
teams that have really efficient ball boys and ball girls, that's what you're going to see. But the teams that don't, they're not going to. Nor should they, by the way. Nor should they lose their jobs. But they won't. But the league just won't report on them.
Right.
Right.
It's just-
Meanwhile,
it's-
you got the Durham Bulls sending out Ripken the bat dog to go get every single bat.
I bet he's fast though.
Oh my God, Ripken's awesome. He's the man. All right, we'll move on here. Some top prospects have made their MLB rosters. So Jordan Walker from the Cardinals, he's a very old, 20 years old, making the opening day roster
Crazy.
for them, and then Volpe for the Yankees has made the roster. So that is 2 out of the top 5 prospects that have made the rosters. I'm sure there's others too.
Did I see correctly that Volpe not just made the roster, but he's going to be their starting shortstop?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
I
what
would
I thought.
imagine.
It's impressive.
I
you know,
imagine down bottom of the lineup. But yeah, I
yeah,
saw
I mean, you're
that
going to
too.
break the Yankees lineup that young as a rookie. I mean,
Mhm.
that doesn't happen in a place like New York very often.
Well, looking for that next Jeter, right? He's going to be a
Local
career
kid from
shortstop.
Jersey. Yeah.
Local, yeah, absolutely.
And he is talented. Boy, oh boy, is that kid talented.
Sure is. Yep.
We already kind of touched on that when I talked about the Yankees, that Severino's to start the season on the IL so that he joins Carlos Rondon and Frankie
Yeah,
Montas.
with everybody else and Harrison Bader and everybody else who's hurt.
Yep. We also touched on the Adam Wainwright groin injury coming out of the WBC. I mean, that's what happens when you're 50 and, like,
Yeah, he's not a young man.
yeah. But this injury hurts the Phillies big time. Rhys Hoskins goes down with a torn ACL. He had some huge home runs in that playoff run for Philly. But yeah, he goes down with torn ACL. He is done for the season. So now the Phillies are out Hoskins and Harper to start the season. But it sounds like Harper is going to be back sooner than they thought, which is
Yeah,
good.
they're holding out.
Fans.
They're holding out hope that he can come back and DH sooner rather than later. Kind of, I mean, Shohei did it too. Shohei came back from his Tommy John a little bit earlier, but he DH'd only because he couldn't throw yet.
Right.
They're thinking about the same thing with Harper.
Yep.
And what I found interesting too is Rhys Hoskins, I believe, is a free agent at the end of this year, and he he put out a very emotional message to the fans of Phillies, almost like a goodbye, because he's not expecting to get re-signed. So he sees this as the end of his career in Philadelphia.
Ugh. Heartbreaking. That sucks.
Yeah, it was not good. He put out a pretty emotional message thanking the fans for all their support, and
That's tough.
and apparently the Phillies are working out Nick Castellanos over at first base because they don't really have a great solution without Hoskins.
Fair. And then today the Atlanta Braves dropped their City Connect jerseys. So, and it is pretty much their old Atlanta jerseys.
Sponsored by Big Al's Auto Body Shop.
I think it's the same exact jersey concept as the 70s and 80s, like the Hank Aaron.
The Hank
jersey,
Aaron's. Yeah.
Except for it's a capital A and it says the A.
The A.
And that's it. But the color scheme, the places of the colors, the sleeves, it's the same exact Hank Aaron. So it's kind of what the Angels did. They kind of went retro but made it modern. I like them, but I thought for some reason they were going to drop the other 16 this year. That's not the case. They're only dropping 6 this year. So the Braves will drop on April 8th. Rangers will drop on April 21st. Mariners will drop on May 5th.
Oh,
The Reds.
I'll be
on
curious what the Mariners do. They've had some really good uniforms in their history.
the Seattle Pilots.
Yeah.
But they could go completely off the reservation, just go off the walls too. Which
They totally could, yeah.
And I've said, if you're gonna go off the walls, go off the damn walls. So
go Kraken colors, supersonic colors.
Oh, gross!
Whatever,
no.
man. Peanuts.
Right. The Reds are on May 19th. Orioles on May 26th. Though we're just gonna miss those city.
Oh, that's too bad.
The weekend before. And then the Pirates on June 27th. The Pirates could be good. I'm kind of pumped for the Pirates.
I feel like the Pirates have had a historically like boring uniform structure. They've had a lot of them, but it's always been the same black and yellow and just like
as long as they don't bring back those striped caps, man.
Oh god.
I feel like those are going to be part of it.
Totally. They have to be.
For sure.
Those are iconic, but not for good reasons, but they're iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. So
they'll have something to do. They'll have something to do with the three rivers that all connect right in that area of Pittsburgh. There'll be the bridge. It'll be pretty basic stuff like that, I think.
Yeah. Nice. That's all I have for tonight. You guys got anything?
I got one thing. And I honestly I hadn't seen this until just recently, but there's an ambidextrous college pitcher, and this was a few weeks ago. He's pitching at Mississippi State, true freshman.
Mississippi State, yeah.
Yeah, he pitches both right-handed and left-handed, throws 97 miles per hour from the right, 92 from the left.
Yeah.
And in a sequence, you saw 8 batters, struck out 6 of them, 5 from the right side, 1 from the left. The kid is nasty.
Yeah, the kid's really good. The kid's really, really good.
I put the link in the chat. Anybody hasn't seen him before. I had not come across him until a few days ago. When somebody goes, "Hey, have you seen this?" I was like, "Holy crap!" It blew my mind that a kid could be that good, right-handed and left-handed, and he's just switching batter to batter.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I saw a meme that had his start on Friday, his start on Saturday, and then another kid on Sunday, and it was like this kid right-handed, and then this kid on Saturday, his other arm. Like it was just like.
He's nasty.
Crazy.
He's nasty.
So funny. But yeah, that's crazy. Anything else, or that was it?
Nope. That's it. I'm getting ready for some baseball.
All right. Yep. Games will start this week. Like I said, we'll go over our previews next week. We will also go our top right fielders of all time and current right fielders. So watch out for that. We'll put out a question of the week as well. And also our second annual Rounding Third Fantasy Baseball League fires up the draft Wednesday night. So like nothing like getting in right underneath the time frame there. But Wednesday night at 8, we're drafting for the second annual. And someone new is going to win this year because Brian didn't want to reclaim his top prize. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Whatever. You're missing out. All right. So just make sure that you like, follow, subscribe on Facebook and YouTube. You can also, like I said, listen on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you all next Monday at 8 o'clock.
See ya.
Later.